Hello, hello. Hope you've had a lovely break. Welcome to your second breakout session in Working in Production. I'm Matthew. I'm the engagement producer here at the theatre. I'm going to help you lead through kind of these section of this breakout session. Just a couple of housekeeping notices first. Just make sure your phones are on silent. If you need to take a break at any given point during the session, you see it's a very relaxed circumstance. Free to do so. You can get down to the cafe. Also, there is seating areas just like on the steps. So if you need to have minutes, just kind of allow some support. Information is absolutely fine. As well, to the fire exits, if there was going to be a fire today, fingers crossed, there won't be. It will be led down these steps, okay, will be convening at the park, which is right on this place there. Drinks are right there. Yeah, absolutely. So, today, we are joined by some of the talented people to take the show from page to stage at the Mercury. We're going to hear a little bit more about their roles and how they work together, how they get the show up. We'll have informal chats, so, and then give a chance to Q&A and then session. So, please join me in welcoming to the discussion Tracy Charles, who's the executive producer here at the Mercury Theatre. We've got Rebecca Samuels, who's our company stage manager at the Mercury Theatre. We have David Kidd, who is a freelance lighting director designer. He previously worked on Lord Brothers, Todd, Educating Greetings, to name a few. He's also going to be doing lighting designing for Aladdin as well. And then finally, we've got Rudy Vincent, our wardrobe manager. Well, so first thing is I wanted you to introduce yourselves to who you are. Obviously, we'll talk about what you do, but what your connection is to the moment.
Okay. Hello, I'm Tracy. I'm the executive producer. I'm also the joint chief exec. So the executive producer part of me enables Ryan Price as creative director's vision and make sure that the shows get mounted and have overall view and control of everything. Whereas Steve might have, for example, so he does the organisation, the HR of that side of it. So as joint chief exec, I also strategy and vision for Mercury. I have been here since 2014 as producer. I stepped up to joint chief executive in 2018. But before that was not the board, and before that, as an independent producer, brought did a introduction to that.
There's usually a W initial W, because when I joined Equity about 10 years ago, they said you had to change your name. And as well, I want to change it, but I joined the initial job. So I discovered that there was an Elvis impersonation. So you haven't got the Elvis impersonation today, you've got it. My association, I've been a freelance since the 90s, I think, because previously to that, I was a technician at the West End. Before that, I was a technician, a house technician, in a house in Wales, in Brentford, and so on. That's what I did. Some dollars of and I ended up in London. Long story, I ended up in London working for Star Mosques. Which was a wonderful thing to do. All of that, during that time, I worked saw how they worked in the operation. Eventually, sabbatical back in to work. That was something I would do. So that wasn't my intention trajectory, but it did work out that way. So that was 1992. Buckroy, assistant. And that was it, and that's where my relationship with Mercury started. In that sense, and I've also worked with Ryan a few times, not here, so this will be the first time.
Did you not do more?
So more fans. So that's my trajectory.
Hi, I'm Brina. I'm the wardrobe manager at Mercury. I've been here just over 9 years now. Prior to that, I was freelancing. So I've been in the hospital industry for about just under 30 years. And in my role here, I'm basically responsible for creative lead, design director, and strategy and later. So video, productions, industry.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, or more commonly known as Bex, so please do call me Bex. I'm the company stage manager. I joined Mercury in 2008 as an ASM. I previously come to the theatre with a small studio show, and then heard that there was a job going here and talked to the production manager and said, yeah, come and join the team. So yes, I've been here for nearly 13 years now, and joined as an ASM, then became the deputy stage manager, and more recently took over leadership of the stage management team about 3 years ago as stage manager, and more recently this year as company stage manager. Yeah, and I look after the SM team, I manage them, and I work very closely with the director and designer, again, to put their vision on stage. I also work with the cast in a pastoral sense. I look after them whilst they're working for us.
Fantastic. So I've got a few questions related to kind of the process of in-house shows. So Tracy, when working on an in-house produced show, once the title of the show has been confirmed, can you sort of talk us through what the process is you had to get to the wheels up and running?
I love that very simple once the title's been confirmed. That's the hardest bit. Trying to choose what's the perfect title for this exact slot. B, then trying to get the rights, which is the most important thing. Please don't do anything until you've got the rights. There are some very bad stories out there, I can tell you. And trying to get it available, to choose something else, and, to negotiate with somebody else who's got them and which fits the country. So that's with the tricky bit. Once the title has been confirmed, the first question is who's directing. Now, if it's an in-house production, quite often it will be Ryan Bride, our creative director. Daniel Buckroy is artistic director before that. A couple of shows a year we have guest directors for. So director in place first, and then it's about who they envisage bringing that show to life, who they want on the design team, and we start gradually putting all of those into place. The time on that can vary enormously. So a pandemic has done a huge amount to condense everything. Normally, we work about 18 months in advance, and normally, and in fact, I am now already trying to put in place autumn 2022, whilst at the same time, I have no idea what the titles are for summer or spring 2022 yet, because certain things have had to shift. And certainly for the basketball show, we had 3 months from knowing that we were going to be able to confirm the title and open the show. So that was what I call the keep on scramble version of what I do. It was a little, and I'm still playing catch up, to be honest. Panto was fine because Panto we deferred for a year. So we had most of our creatives and everything in place for that one. But for the opening show, for the autumn show, for all of that, it's been really hard to catch up. So working as far in advance as possible, but getting all those people in place, and basically then if I can take care of the finances and make sure we can afford to do the show, which is what we've pinned down before the end of the film title, can't afford to do it, how do it? Because that, fortunately, then we can balance our shows over the year. So basically, Canton is the back rate here. Canton underwrites all the other shows. So I will do an annual budget that runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March. And every show I put in there has to balance against the profits from Canton. At the very least, we're breaking even on the shows. Preferably, I like this to so then my job to collate everybody together and then hand it over to our amazing teams and just go, there you go, there's your money, there's your money, create magic, and we do brilliantly.
So in terms of then working with freelancers for the company house shows, what is your preferred process, let's say, in terms of freelancers and creatives looking for work?
Do you mean in terms of how we engage with them in the very first?
Absolutely, yeah.
So one of the things we were doing pre-pandemic, and we really will get back to catch our breath, is myself, Dilek, and Ryan now join us in that. We're doing creative meets every month. So we would just set aside a day and meet in the morning, normally local artists, and in an afternoon further afield. We're now discovering, of course, one can do this on Zoom, so it should make life easier. And therefore trying to always spread that network of meet. I'm really aware there's a lot to talk about at the moment to their favourites and then not being really aware of getting into venues or getting an opportunity with them. The joy for us now is we build having the studio full time before we do the show. We expect to share it with how to break our space and kind of other things. So we were kind of able to program it for maybe 30 days a year or something, whereas now actually we can seriously program it. So we're very much using that for new work, for writing, for local artists, for them to be able to do R&Ds, for emerging work. So there are far more opportunities now for us to engage people earlier on in their careers. So A, we will get back to creative needs, so that's a great way to meet people. And B, we've just done our first open hire process for the sound design on the Sirens, which is what happened writing for the studio. And I think it's made a huge success, so we will definitely do that again. So what I would say to anyone wanting to work with us is send us an email, send us a CV. If that's not what you're good at, then actually send us a really short email with a video recording introducing yourself if the written word is not your thing. We're also really open to that. And just say, I would love to come along and meet you. Please can I join up for the next creative meet or get a cup of coffee sometime? Because we always want to meet them. Having said that, yes, there are a lot of very established freelancers that basically.
So keeping on with freelancers then, to how shows, Bex and Karina, really good to understand what kind of, within your department, what kind of core skills or professional attributes you'd be looking for in terms of supporting your work.
I suppose core skills over and above the obvious street making skills would be working under pressure, being a team player, not just within the team, but within the team we work very much as a whole and support each other. So that would be two of the big things. And flexibility. The hours can vary from 5 to 10, depending on what's going on. So flexibility is always good.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Stage management really. normally I look for proven experience in SMTs, but that doesn't necessarily have to be professional experience. That can be amateur or at school, college, or university as well. Creative flair is really important in stage management. We've had people in our team that don't necessarily have proven prop making skills, but their willingness to try and seek out how to make things really get you a long way in stage management. If you can research and find out things on your own, but also ask for help when you need it, I think it goes a long way. It really does.
And so, in terms of moving to sort of visiting companies, viscos, Tracy, I wondered if we could sort of talk about visiting work and how you'd be expecting visiting companies to approach the theatre to share their work.
So we have a programming inbox which receives hundreds of emails per week. So how to make your stand out? First of all, pet hates. Not my name, right, please. Seriously, if you're going to email me, Tracy.
So how do you spell that then?
TRACEYCHILDS. Thank you. And if you're emailing David, it's David otherwise, you might have Elvis. But all those really simple things, you know, you can tell when people, the amount of people who write, "Dear Tracy," without the E. I am such a fan of the work you do in Coventry. Colchester. You know, it's unbelievable. So if you haven't taken care about that, why am I going to trust that you've taken care about the show that you think is amazing? The awful copy and pasting that goes on that means that it changes font when you put the middle bit in that's just about the show. You go, just take the time to make it nice. You know, make me feel like you want to talk to me. You know, it's like anything, isn't it? You want to feel engaged with, well, we're the same. It all comes down to, I'm afraid, have you got the right title, the right subject matter, at exactly the right time for us, and can we fit it in? Have we got something else that clashes with it that's really similar that we've already booked in? Assets, if you've got production photos, obviously if you're just starting out, you won't have, but even so, you can still put a touring pack together nicely to make it look really professional and make it look like you're going to have that level of detail and eye and aesthetic eye on your show. A short email with a large attachment is great. A large email not, because honestly, if we open the email and it goes onto this file, we go, I'll save that one for later. And I'm not sure when later comes sometimes, because as I say, the programming inbox gets several hundred emails a week. Personally, I get over 100 a day, easily. We aim to respond if you've actually engaged with us. The programming inbox will give you an automatic, you know, thank you very much, we'll get back to you with. If you sent it personally to us, we will aim to respond to you, even if it's just to say, we've got this, we will take notice, but we're only going to be in touch if, because there are just too many emails otherwise. But it's all the things you can expect, it's not rocket science, you know, present yourself nicely, be polite, be friendly. It's fine to email first and then follow up with a phone call. A couple of weeks later, if you haven't heard anything, just to make sure to go, oh, can I check your brochure date? That's always good. When's your next brochure deadline? So when are you looking to have everything in place for? Because programming happens in two ways normally. The first one is immediate. You send me something I know I want, so actually I'm going to book it in now. I'm going to give you, come back immediately, go, I can give you this date or this date, which one do you want? Okay, great, let's pencil you for both, I'll come back to you. Or it happens really late, just towards the brochure deadline, but I've got you sitting in my amber list. So if what you send me doesn't work for us, it's going to sit in the red inbox. Still keep hold of it, just in case. I get desperate. That sounds awful, but you know, it might be something that clashes with something else. And they drop out, and then I can put you in. If I want you immediately, you've gone into my green, you've already been on the dates. Otherwise, you're sitting in my amber inbox, and it's when we get towards the end of the brochure deadline, we've got 3 slots left to fill. We look at the balance of the whole program and go, okay, we've got a bit of dance, we've got a bit of this. What we really need is something very artistic. What have I got sitting in the adolescents? So, yeah, sorry, that's probably a little bit disheartening because there's a lot of competition out there. It doesn't mean we can't stand out.
So Bex, in terms of visiting companies and then as well, you work with them. Tell us about your expectations of any of the visiting companies when they come to visit the Mercury.
Yeah, so I'll have to start with the caveat of the technical manager would normally deal with visiting companies coming into the Mercury. That's how we deal with it. So I'm answering sort of on behalf of him as well. So once all the contracting is done and they're all booked in with Tracy, that's done, it comes over to the technical department who will receive the technical riders. And so the thing that we need to know is we need to know what your show requires. So we need organisation from you. So we want to know what kit you're bringing with you, or what kit that you need to use from our stock. You need to know your staffing, who you're bringing with you. That includes your cast, but also any crew, any stage management that you're bringing with you. And then anything that you need to hire from us. Do you need extra staff on your show? Are you bringing merchandise with you? Are you bringing your own programs? That's then what we need to know. How many dressing rooms do you need? Everything about your show, and that's the expectation from technical and stage management. Really, is the organisation. We expect you to be organised, and we need to get as much information about your show as is possible, really, before you get in.
So David, almost typically what it takes as a freelance creative, what you share with your experience of visiting venues are and what you'd expect from a venue after work.
Well, first and foremost, I think it's right to say that for me, support staff of theatre, the subsidised theatre or commercial event, or commercial theatre show, I have nothing about the immediate staff around me, such as licensed programmer and various other goes on. So I have a non-entity, if you like, the staff around me. So it's very, very important that the staff on the license side, as well as other belongs. So, firstly, for social skills, they're able to communicate, because I think that is as important as training and clear clarity in communication. So when I come to a theatre like Mercury, I know already that the staff will be excellent. That's been my experience of the shows that I've come here. And with that support, that has been taken my job very I suppose really I feel comfortable in a venue that is supported like it's a different thing when you go out in the commercial world, because the staff have to be hired by the producers first of all, like production. So there's a whole plethora of people that we need to hire, and then of course then we have to go into the venue as well. So there is that double whammy, if you like. Then the hired staff, the hired freelance staff, then have to work in this venue, which may be just the skeleton staff and basic staff. Then you get the show on that way. But to keep it in line with Mercury, it's so important that for example, the licensing program is quick, because I don't program on months. Somebody else has these skills come up in the last 30 years. So some license owners who are out there now, some new license owners, do program the license themselves, which there's absolutely no way that I can do that. I just couldn't do it anyway, because I don't have the training. I know what lights do, and I know what the desk does, and I know what the program can do. But I need to envisage this. You have to remember that it's the lighting and the music first. That's where it comes from. And I react lighting is only reactive to the writing and to the music. I can't see how, if I was on a computer desk, which is what it is, on screen, I need to see the stage all the time and interact with the director, designer, lighting programmer. So I would be able to program the stage and look at my plan and paperwork and this was there at the same time. So cutting out that and just calling out numbers and figures and percentages to my programmer is just great. I can still see, but I'm having to do that anyway. But having to do that and that, and have a director over my shoulder saying, I don't think this is right, so it's really important for me that there is a good structure of staff that are trained and have good communication skills. And if you have that surrounding you, then that is, I feel comfortable. I know that everything's going to go okay, because then I can just concentrate on my creativity without having to worry about any issues that I'm going to solve.
So most of you have worked in the creative industries, both as a freelance or and in full-time employment. I was wondering if any of you could tell us about the challenges and the benefits of both from your experiences.
Challenges of working in building. I think from a stage management perspective, because your main job is to look after the show, and that's how it would work if you were freelance and you'd be hired or employed just to look after the show. If you're working in a building, you have to support, we have to support Mercury as a business in these other ventures. So we're hiring out rooms where you've got the cafe bar, we've got the creative learning and talent department. And so SM in this building supports all of those other departments and ventures. And I think that can be a challenge because we're not just doing the show. We've got 2 rehearsal rooms to maintain and look after. We have a green room to look after. We also have 2 stores to look after. I've got a massive furniture store that's in a barn down the A12, and then I've also got a smaller small prop store on site as well. Both of them need archiving and maintaining. I also hire out stuff to people as well, and it's important to say that the Mercury currently hire for free. So if you ever do want anything for a show, do email us because we're always happy to help if we can. So there's that as well. If you were freelancing, you would just be looking after the show itself, but I think there's also challenges to that, where as a member of stage management, you'd always be looking and thinking ahead to where your next job is coming from and what that's going to be. So yeah, there's challenges to both.
Yeah, totally agree.
So, freelancer, something to handle with some people like that. You very much look after yourself rather than the team. So that's the challenge for work. When a permanent member of staff, I found you have to look after yourself much more, but also look on a team that you're responsible for, even if you're not the manager of that team, but just a member of that team, you still have responsibility to look out for everyone else in that team. And as Bex has just said, the wider team that is the together. So your time is split between just the show and other things going on in the building. Also, we're very grateful working on just one show. It's several of them. So as a freelancer, you generally be focusing on one show at a time. There's differences. I wouldn't say they're necessarily negatives and positives. I've enjoyed both. It's just a different way of working.
And Bex, as company stage manager, I wonder if you could share us the additional support you've offered the cast, crew, creatives regarding comfort, well-being, whilst they're working with the internal board.
Okay, so part of my role is obviously managing the SM team, and we look after props and furniture and things that are in the show. Also, as company stage manager, I look after the actors and the creatives that come in. So part of that can include booking doctor's appointments, booking physio appointments. If we've got somebody's sprained an ankle and they need first aid, we administer that. But also if they need ongoing treatment, that falls to me to organise. If it's been okayed by the producer that we can afford it. It's health and family first, of course. So I do that. At the moment, I book flu jabs for everybody in the building every year. Because the panto, we want to ensure that we don't have people falling ill to this year's strain of flu. And yes, it'll be interesting to see if we get boosters. We need boosters for COVID as well. That may well fall to me to look after as well. Parents and things as well. Yes, So quite recently, we've had a lot of support for actors with children come to us, and so I've done a lot of work with supporting them whilst they're working with us as well, making sure that they've got a comfortable place to stay, that they're welcome in the theatre. We've organised rehearsals around feeding times for babies and spaces for families to be in backstage as well. I oversee the digs list, the theatre digs list, and that's also accessible as well. So it's not just families that we're looking after. We have on our digs list, we have a section where we go and visit the property and we make sure that we know, for example, how many steps there are up to the bedroom that's for rent, just so people know who have access issues, that they know the kind of property that they're coming into. Small things like that make a difference. We also try to use non-gender specific language as well in all of our calls and paperwork and backstage announcements. And that is all part of making the theatre accessible and welcoming to companies and creatives that come work with us.
So continuing with visiting work, Tracy, I assume when exploring visiting companies in terms of working on finding how to program, we need to consider, obviously, one of the most important is how we sell for our audiences. Touched on it earlier, but in terms of expanding, I wonder to tell everybody here what you need to see from a visiting company.
It's a tricky one because if your show is brand new, then you don't have sales figures to back it up. If you've already done, one successful tour, this is your second tour, or you've done your skeleton, bring it out. Shows, yeah, unfortunately they tend to go for bigger theatres. But if you have sales data, then that's great. Let us know how it's sold at other venues. Be honest, because not we don't trust you, but if it sounds like you're doing 100% business on a brand new show that no one's ever heard of, a little bit suspicious next time at Harlow or Derby or whatever, you might just go, by the way, how is that? So actually what it comes down to really is quality. That's what we're most interested in. Do we think your show is of that basic quality? Because that's what we want to go for. And then after that, it's how it fits into the programme and whether the show is, have we got too much drama, do we need some more comedy, several things, really strong triggers, do we need something a little more family friendly? So it's getting the balance right.
And David, in terms of your process as well, working with lighting designer, what makes your job easier when you're working with lighting technicians and producers?
Well, I think it is that communication, clarity, and interpersonal skills very, very important. Also, because one of the first things that I need to deal with very early on in the process is about budgets, and first thing I do is say what is the budget. I don't want to know just tell me when to stop. And the process, when I first started lighting design, it's changed somewhat because my involvement now is much earlier on as opposed to a few decades ago. Yes, I'm where the lighting designer, whether that lighting designer was in-house, who used to be the chief electrician maybe, would go and see the run-through on a Friday or Friday afternoon or Saturday morning, and then draw the plan on Saturday, ready for it to be rigged overnight and set up on Sunday, and then focus on later on Sunday. That is all now very different because mostly equipment is rented in to supplement the equipment that's already in the theatre. And of course, if it's commercial shows, touring, for example, then that's even bigger thing because we have to as well. But I think it's about clarity, it's about good communication, and it's about budget as well, and knowing what the budget is. I always get very good help here at Mercury because we've already set our equipment answer, for example, which is the earliest deadline. It's we want to get in quickly because we know that the rental houses are going to up their prices this year. So
yes.
and so that's really good to get that support from the very, very beginning, which of course in my experience now is much earlier and much earlier on, as opposed to leaving it to the last minute or using the in-house equipment. So yes, I think it's going back to what I've said, it's about clarity, good communication, and just the working to schedule as well, which I'm expected to do, and everyone else then is expected to do.
And Marina, so much of freelance work is through word of mouth now. How do you get your foot in the door and expand your network?
Oh, it's not easy. It's changed a bit since I was freelance because everything internet happened. Prior to that, I used to literally send out letters and photos of something I worked on, and I used to send them out to sort of 300 venues, designers, supervisors every 6 months or so. Obviously, close. So you send out, it's the same sort of information. So I sort of like to I like to receive supervisor or manager. I like receiving cover letters with a CV attached. Images or a website link is really, really useful. So you can see past work. And I think it's perseverance. I think don't be scared to send out emails 2 or 3 times a year. Tracy touched on this earlier on that timing is critical and it's a bit of a guessing game. If you have a look at the brochure and see what the schedule is happening on the theatre, Trip generally starts hiring anywhere between 2 to 3 months before the show goes on stage. We usually start rehearsing a month before the show goes on stage. So we'll start planning our staff about at least a month before that. Panto 6 months before. So you sort of want to look beginning of the summer at the very latest to season. So I think it's about timing. But your email can get lost. So if you have an attachment of your cover letter and your CV, I put that into the file. If your cover letter is the email, it will just get lost. And I think the cover letter is really important. That's where you can say more about yourself and your own personality. And that's really important. I think skills can be learned, but your personality, your passion for theatre, you can't learn or be taught that. That's something that you have inside of that to come through. So cover letters, I think, are important. Keep the email short. The attachments can be a bit lengthy. And I think just keep sending them through, because at some point your emails are going to come at the point where I'm looking for something. So it's don't be scared to put
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Matthew, can I jump back in on something I should have said earlier? So first of all, Karina makes a really good point about our website. It's a really good source of information because you can tell from that what the upcoming shows are, and as Karina says, work backwards as to when we can plan. But the other thing is we will always stay on there what we're casting at the moment, so for actors and things and submit themselves. What I should have said about sales, when you're asking me about things selling, is when you're sending me your show that you want the Mercury to post, it's really important to say who you think the audience is. Please don't say everyone. No shows for everyone. Fasting is pretty much as good as you get, but it'll be from 8 to 98. It's not for under 8. It's not, it's not for people who pay for slapstick. So telling us who you think it's for and why now. Why are you putting this show on now? What is the thing that makes you want to produce or direct or whatever it is this show now? What is the zeitgeist that makes you think this is the appropriate show for this moment? And if there is one, there doesn't have to be at all, but if there is one, why the Mercury? Why the East of England? Why Essex? Why, if there is a local connection, then that's also great to hear.
Thank you very much. So this is the final question from me. If each of you could summarise very briefly your advice for creatives in the room for approaching or working within production.
So I'm going to do a really long preamble to this, which is, I'm hoping everyone is knowing now the way that the world is responding differently now, is that it is never acceptable to be asked to work for no money, or not to be spoken to politely, or to be harassed, bullied, discriminated against in any way, shape, or form. That stands. However, also, so if you have needs, we will always ask if people have caring responsibilities, or have some performing arts, there are things we can work around. That said, we're going to do everything possible to try and help you. Please don't be honest. Because actually, the honest answer is, as Karina says, we want people who actually will help everybody and collaborate and work well together, be a good team member, and actually help create a really happy company. Particularly things like pantomime, which is a really long run, and over Christmas and people having fun, having a good time. You really don't want them being miserable. So the honest answer is, you may think you get away with being to myself, but actually you won't, because we'll hear about it. And the joy of it is that you really do it. So, actually you might do it if you were to get. Whereas if you come, all of your needs in place, that notwithstanding, and actually just come and join in collaborating with us, they're nice to meet them, actually make it work. So it's really important. I used to say this really cheesy thing to say one workshop about your reputation is like virginity, you can only use it once.
Well, use of the word there, which captures collaboration. That's what it's the whole of the theatre industry and the entertainment industry really embrace work part, which is what we do. It is all about collaboration and what I mentioned earlier about communication skills, interpersonal skills. And I would also say that don't ever think that you're established. Forever as a freelancer, you will always forever be searching for work. There's never that time you think, I've made it now. That's it. And there's a lot of young people coming out of from the art schools now. They've done their 3 years, but just go into it, and they come out at the end thinking that they're done. That's it. It's not like that at all. Yes, knowledge is very good, but working within a team and having the experience is absolutely key. So always keep on the ball and never lose sight of the fact that you're always very as good as your last prompts. So it is never rest on your laurels. Keep going. Love the business that you're in, and
say, I start with big mistakes that I made as a freelancer, and I was just sitting back and waiting for it to come to me. Won't happen. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry or how established you are. It's still not going to come to you. You still have to go and find it. But you have to learn to be your own best advertiser, and you have to learn to appreciate your own skills and shout about them, because you have the really good skills and
Opening that parties and things like that. They don't like to have a sort of very comfortable, but it's called precedent reflection. I can't do it. Some people are very, very good at it. Some people are a bit too good at it. So it pushes them away. So it's about balance, but it is, you're quite right. So it's that forever looking forward. So that is really key.
Yeah. Just to reiterate what Tracy was saying about knowing who you're contacting, we have emails that we will sure don't know what the bid is creating at the moment. Yeah, do your research first, and email, and it is all about learning to screens and phone as well. I'm really terrible at. I'll get an email with a CV, and I'll go, great, I'll save that for later, and then it just falls by the wayside. I quite like a phone call as well, or just a message on the answer. I send you an email, and I'm just phoning up to see if you have any questions. I just persist, because it is all about time.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. Really, really informative. We've only got 10 minutes left, just under 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to leave the call for you guys to ask any questions. We've got a couple of minutes for a few questions, and then we'll have the last 5 minutes to do it.
Hey, so I've read a lot about stuff about kind of starting production and moving forward, and the importance of like going to university versus not going to university. How much of a decision is made by you guys on looking to see a degree or looking at going this person and starting from the bottom and working their way through? Kind of how have I made the mistake?
Well, I never went to school in university, so it's a school of box. So I started off at the receiving house in Swansea, when I was having something, and at the age of, it was legal for me to be working 15, and that was a receiving house with a regulatory season in the summer, and my own personal experience, that was the best way, because I saw the way that people, which is why I'm so hot on interpersonal skills. I've seen the way that people reacted to each other, how the teamwork works, and again, respect also trying to get information from visiting companies about what their requirements were. For me, that was the best way of learning about business. That's not to take away from what performing arts schools do, because I think that this has to be a good balance of learning and discipline in performing arts schools, whatever that might be. But then I think you need to balance that with working in distance of film school, but there were only 2 back in the 1970s. Yeah. But I would have to have found then. I think it was something like £2,000 or £3,000 a term, because it was before digital. So it's like all your film stock and all that sort of thing before video even. I can't believe I'm saying that. So that I went to art school actually, and stained glass windows. There you go. But I think that all the while I was working at the theatre as a part-timer, so art school, even now, I see art school. At the time, I was thinking, what am I doing this for? Silk screen printing and stained glass windows, photography, which is great. So I enjoyed that bit. But it was about learning how to put your ideas across, which at the time I thought was a waste of time. But now, working with directors and designers, and it's about putting your idea forward and maybe having a heated debate about the way something should look. My art school time, all those years ago, put me in good stead. And I never thought at the time that would come to my benefit later. So yes, I think a good balance of that's a sitting on the fence answer, isn't it? Yes.
I deal with costume. I think it depends on the department you work in, actually. But in costume, having a degree is becoming increasingly more important over the last few years. That's not to say you have to, but what it shows is a foundation of making skills that you would have been taught. And it also shows your potential employer what kind of level that you might be looking at based on what university you went to. So it's usually a good indicator. However, if you've got the alternative life experience, examples of your work, be it photographs or actual pieces, then that can balance out not having a qualification. So both work.
Just so aware of time, I'm going to let this 5 minutes as an opportunity for you to network and to talk to each other and ask them.
We have 2 more questions. Should we do them?
Should we do them very quickly? Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, you were
I'm.
first, but
Oh, sorry.
and then
Oh.
you after.
And it was just if it's a new piece and you're pitching it to a venue, and I think a small scale than here. If you've got facts and figures and you've got a very basic talk production, you've got some photographs. Is there anything sort of the sprinkly icing on the cake? What would you look for to go? Actually, I'm going to invest in that. If they've got to put something into it, either financially or space.
Nicely presented, so I can see that you have an eye for detail, that you have a really clear aesthetic, a really good image about what your show is. Will sell it as much as any good strapline will, and something about why it's right for now.
Like
It's the biggest, yes,
Yeah.
it's the biggest answer. So
Yes, thank you. You were talking about being freelance and having projects and constantly having to push yourself forward, etc. And then what I want to ask is if you've got a project and you've emailed in, is there a point where, like, I'm quite worried about being irritating and pestering and all that, so I've not done that. And so is there an email you would write to someone to say, I don't think we'll do that or whatever, because I haven't had that feedback and don't know where I stand and don't want to be pushy, and it's difficult to know when you hear
worrying about that, because actually people do pester us and that does get irritating and that is tricky. There are other projects that we love and still haven't found the right space for. I'm looking at somebody in particular here. So what I would say is, if you send the email in the first instance, maybe follow it up with a phone call to say, I just want to check that this arrived safely if you haven't heard anything, and when your next brochure deadline is, when your cut-off point is for this. And if you get to the point where you're still not hearing anything, you want something more, maybe send another email going, I appreciate you, this probably isn't going to work for your program, but I'd really appreciate some feedback, as this is one of my first projects. Would you have time to give me, 10 minutes on the phone, or can I buy you a cup of coffee?
Thank you.
And then hopefully you'll get a response that will be a bit more rounded and helpful.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Tracy, David, Corinne, and Bex, thank you very, very much for your time and your experiences and sharing those. A couple of minutes, so if you want to ask any final questions here once you're kind of tidying up, it's now lunchtime, so feel free to go downstairs to the cafe bar for that. Thank you very much once again.